Hello, welcome to Poppin Predictions, where we believe movies aren't over at the end, but are meant to be continued. You're here with Andy and Marqueze, where we ponder what happens in the story once the credits begin to roll. On today's episode, we'll be reviewing the movie The Human Centipede, the first sequence. This film follows a mad scientist who kidnaps and mutilates a trio of tourists in order to reassemble them into a human centipede. He does this by stitching their mouths to each other's rectums. This movie is rated R for disturbing, sadistic horror violence, nudity, and language. As always, spoilers ahead. Marqueze, please don't talk out of your butt here when you describe this movie.
Yeah, so I almost don't even know where to go with this. So, as I'm sure many of you have probably heard this film, as I'm also sure many of you have probably never seen this film.
I'm sure plenty of you are wondering, why are they doing this film?
We're doing this film because we know you've never seen it likely and never will watch it. And so we wanted to watch it for you. We took the brunt of that.
We'll be your eyes and ears.
We'll be your eyes and ears. We'll watch it for you and then, let you know what you could expect from a movie like this, right?
Yeah.
So this film basically, as kind of Andy described already, it just follows this. It really kind of starts with these two girls, right? These two girls are going on a vacation in Germany.
Yeah.
And classic, story, horror story. Car breaks down, stuck in the woods, whatever, right? And this, they end up looking for help because it's like a storm or it's raining, whatever. And they just find this house and they happen to find the house of this German scientist, who, has certain Nazi resemblances, but we'll get to that a little bit later.
For sure.
But, yeah, we'll get to that a little bit later. But, he's a scientist and, they welcome him in the house. He welcomes them into the house, and basically from that point you can kind of guess what happens, right? So he ends up drugging them. Then he has a laboratory basically where there's 3 hospital beds, right? And it's these two girls and a third person, and the person ends up, he says they're not a match for whatever reason, and the girls are still trying to figure out what is going on, they don't know what's going on, and so he kills the third person. And then gets a new guy, so now there's a new body in this third bed seat. And then you finally figure out what's happening. The doctor goes and gives a full presentation of what he plans to do with these 3 people. And he describes very in detail, just like a surgeon, of how he's going to make a human centipede. And that he's tried this before with his dogs. It's hinted at throughout multiple points early on in the movie that he had 3 Rottweilers he's already done this with. So now he wants to try to do it with humans.
Yeah, I mean, he has a picture of them sewed together on an
It's
he goes to bed every night looking at his dogs.
Yeah, exactly. And his backstory is that he was a surgeon that was a leading surgeon separating Siamese twins.
Yes.
And so now he wants to up the level and by actually letting to conjoin people together. And so this is his first experience with humans doing that. And I mean, that's the movie. He kidnaps them, he gets them to sews them together, and then tries to keep them alive, train them like a dog or whatever. And then, they try to escape. So it's a basic, he tortures them, and it's a basic kind of horror film in that sense, but it's just obviously what he's doing to them that is so unique. And kind of made this a legendary film.
Yeah, for sure. And it's just I remember when we were watching this movie, I was just these 2 girls are really stupid. They're they show up to the guys. First of all, they leave the car, and I think that leaving the car was not the best move. I will give them credit that at least they didn't split up. That was, that's a pretty classic horror movie move, and I'm glad that they didn't split up. But maybe in this situation it might have helped because them going to the house, and then, for me, I think it's a huge warning sign when you go to somebody's house and they're like, were you followed? Or are there others? I don't remember if he says, were you followed? I think he asked, are there others? I would be that's a little weird. So yeah, they're like all the warning signs were there of like, do not trust this dude. Like, and they're just like, yeah, no, it's fine. They didn't let him call. He didn't let them call for help. They're like, no, I'll make the call for you. I'm like, I'll do it myself. I don't trust you.
There's just so many red flags.
I just met you, and this is crazy, but I don't trust you, and I'm going to call someone else maybe. But it's just, it was just just a lot of warning signs out there. They'll be like, don't trust this person here.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, it really is a conventional horror film. That's kind of like a main point I really want to get across to people is it has like a very basic plot line. And so you're not going to get anything in this film that's like so different and like, oh, this is like the best horror film I've ever seen. Like, I don't think anyone will ever say that about this film. It's very traditional. It's just the concept of like, you've never seen people sewed together, you know? And I just think that it's in the genre of body horror, you know, where like Cronenberg and stuff like that just do really weird shit with the human body in order to like freak people out. And this is that, like, people cannot imagine being stuck. Like I remember, like, Andy, were you watching this movie just like imagining like, man, like, where would I have to be? What if I was in the Centipede? Like, where would I choose to be? That was like my first thought, I will say.
Are you asking me where I would rather be?
Sure. Sure. If you had to pick a position.
If I had to, you know, obviously the go-to is like being the front person because like then you don't have to eat someone's poop. But then like you have to know that you are doing that. I mean, I definitely wouldn't. It sucks, but I definitely wouldn't want to be the last person because obviously when we saw in the movie and like what I was thinking as well was like, you know, if you're the last person, like, you know, poop doesn't have like, it doesn't have nutritional value. And so it passing through two people, like you're not getting any sort of nutrients from it. And so like, I mean, you saw she got like spoiler. I mean, we already gave the spoiler warning. So if you're still here, you don't care. Like, you know, like Jenny dies at the end of it because she got an infection. Now, we don't know if it's because of the surgery or if it's because of her eating eating Lindsay's secondhand poop, but
secondhand poop.
Secondhand poop here. Secondhand. Oh, God. Jimmy's just shaking his head off. The camera is like, nope.
I got a quick Jimmy fact because the whole time I've been looking up this movie, I was like, what is how does someone come up with this? And the director, Tom Six is his name. He came up with this whole movie because he was watching the news and there was a pedophile that got a really light prison sentence, and he was like, you know what? This person deserves to have their mouth stuck to the butt of a truck driver.
What?
Like, that's the punishment that they should get. That's how this whole movie came about. And the idea stuck in his head so long, he asked his ex-girlfriend, and I'm pretty sure this is why it's his ex-girlfriend, to get on all fours so that he could take a photo of her and Photoshop a human centipede so he could get the idea in his head. But he put the movie together, and his words are that it's an iconic horror movie because it deals with claustrophobia, the inability to speak, eating someone else's poop, and involuntary surgery. And that's why it's a great horror film in his mind.
I mean,
where do we even go from here?
I mean, he has a point, actually. I'm sorry. Right, he has a point when he says, like, point. That's a really good point for why it's an iconic horror film. Like the claustrophobia, those are all really, I never would have thought about it that way. That.
And it's also, but what really grinds, like, it makes total sense, but like, why would he murder? Because the first person that they had that he killed off at the beginning was a truck driver. Mm-hmm. So why would he kill the truck driver and not actually have him be part of the Human Centipede? Like, if that was like the motivating factor, like, wouldn't he have kept, like, I don't know. Does it really matter if he is a match for this experimental surgery?
Well, if you want to keep the centipede alive.
That's true, but like, how do you know? Like, how do you find out that one is a match and one isn't a match?
I think it's like the blood type match. I think
maybe.
I think that's what I don't know if that's what they're matching, but I think it might have been blood type or something like that. But
yeah.
So I gotta throw this in there for this another Jimmy fact for you. Do you know what the tagline of the movie is?
Oh gosh,
It's 100% medically accurate. That is the tagline of the movie because the director contacted and contracted a real surgeon to overview the process of the surgery so that they could say it was 100% medically accurate.
Is that true? Was that disputed?
That's all the stuff I've been finding. That's
Oh
what it's
my
saying.
goodness.
Oh my goodness.
There's no way. Because I remember debating this. Like, could you take someone's like colon and put it all the way through? Like, I don't know. That seems so intense. And I know one of the big things about the movie, Andy, you were mentioning, was that there's just no way he could have done this by himself. Like this type of procedure.
There's just no way. It's like it would take. I would imagine. I'm not a medical expert. We already talked about this in Songbird that we don't know what we're talking about. But but like I just don't know how one can do 3 back to back operations like this in one go. Like it didn't seem like he took any breaks. It looks like he looked tired at the end of it, so at least it made him like at least that part looked realistic. But I just don't understand how you can do that. And I know from like just like knowing a little bit about like how these types of procedures work is that often they work in teams. Mm-hmm. So that's why there's like a lot of people there, and usually they sub people out and like kind of carry over for like longer procedures like this. And so like I just don't understand how he was able to do it how he was able to do it all together in one go, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, good.
I was just gonna say I just felt really bad for what's his name, Katsuro, the first guy, because like not only is this thing happening to him, but he's the only person that like doesn't speak English within this whole exchange here.
Also adds to the inability to speak. So the two girls literally can't. And then he, can't get his language across. And so all 3 of them, in a way, all have an inability to speak still.
Exactly. So it was just like really, like I could just imagine like how like terrifying. I mean, this whole thing is terrifying, but just how terrifying it could have been from his perspective to like wake up being kidnapped, B, like have these people speaking a language that you don't understand, and like just be like chained to a hospital bed. Like they're all terrified here, but like there's no way to say like who's more terrified than other people, but like I could see from his perspective how terrifying that could be, just waking up like and in a hospital bed locked up and then having like a doctor explain something that you don't understand.
Andy, I remember you actually mentioned it like right after that scene where he's waking up and the doctor's explaining the surgery and he doesn't know what the doctor's saying and all he sees is this like these images of him strapped to a bed. You mentioned that this guy was a really good actor because he does that scene really well. So like he plays it like really perfectly. Like he's waking up and he's tied to this bed and there's just this doctor pointing to what there's just 3 people connected together and he's speaking a language you don't understand. So this guy is flipping out and he's and he's just like, you can see his level of rage increasing and then him taking a break and then like his rage increasing again trying to get out and like he's having like a true like panic, and like he acted it out really well, to be honest.
Yeah, if I'm going to be honest, I think that he's the best actor in the franchise.
Yeah,
not just this movie.
The franchise.
I think the franchise, just because like he just like not the acting wasn't awful. I don't think it was terrible acting, but like there was a certain level of cheesiness, and I felt like he did a really good job of performing. So hats off to him. But yeah, I just am curious, like how Jimmy, what was the name of the director again?
Tom Six.
Tom Six.
Yeah, how he was able to recruit all of these actors and actresses to do this movie, like it just blows my mind here.
I got some more Jimmy facts for you here on this particular piece because I was also one of my things. I was like, how did he get this done? So apparently he auditioned a lot of people in New York, and he said about 70% of the actresses he filmed for the 2 leads left immediately because he would show them a photo and they'd be like, nope, I'm out. I'm not doing that. But who was it? Ashley Williams, who played Lindsay, who I believe was the middle of the Centipede.
Yeah.
Section B.
Yep, Section B. There you go. she said she took the role because she was just out of acting school. Was really trying to find a job that would be like, this is just so out of left field. Like, this will put my name out there and people will get that. And she even lied to her family about it because she knew that she would approve, and then went to see it and everyone hated her afterwards, not surprisingly. So, and then Tom, the other thing about Tom I'll put out there is he chose the 2 lead actresses based on their ability to portray fear through their eyes, because that's predominantly all you would see. So that's what he was looking for.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's really good. Wow.
I mean, listen, Daniel Radcliffe agreed to be a farting corpse, and so I guess you could really find anybody to do anything. But it's just like, it makes sense. Like, it almost plays into the character too. Like her, like the actress real life situation also plays into the character, because like from the sounds of it, like she is just trying to find a break. She's trying to find like her next thing. She's trying to find like her like try to find some help and stuff like that. And so this role was kind of like the catalyst that I don't even know if she's been in anything since this movie. Probably nothing huge, but she could. So, but like it's just, I don't know. It's just really interesting.
I think the idea of them being able to communicate fear through their eyes is actually something I didn't really think of, but actually, a really important theme, because there's multiple scenes where the 2 girls are like trying to hold each other's hand. And so like section B will like reach behind and hold the other girl. And like they're both like either it's like crying, or like you could just like tell like the sadness and pain, but like once again, slowly just through their eyes. And whereas with the guy in front, his is all anger. And so he's yelling and he's screaming, and, you know, like he doesn't care if no one can understand him. Like he's livid. And so they're all portraying this, you know, vastly differently. But, wow, that's something that I never would have thought, but yeah, that's a good fact.
Yeah. But let's talk about Dr. Hyder really quick. I don't know if I'm saying his name really correctly, but like, I thought it was really interesting. I mean, of course, when you're watching this movie, first off, it's taking place in Germany, and he's just putting off really hardcore Nazi vibes. I don't know about you, but I felt like this guy was like a low key, like a Nazi doctor or something like that. And he had photos and paintings of conjoined twins throughout his house. And so you could tell that there's something off about this guy. And I don't know if this is a movie fact or if this is just a weird coincidence, but I mean, there had to be a particular reason why they named him Joseph Hyder, because there's actually is like a Nazi doctor whose name is Joseph Mengele, Mengele, and he was part of the SS. He was a doctor that was at Auschwitz, and he is really famous for doing surgeries with twins and like doing experiments with twins. And so it was really interesting to see how they kind of took that inspiration of from like a real life, like, I don't know how to describe it, a real life monster, in my opinion, and like was able to kind of create a character around it.
Yeah, I think that's like kind of like really, really genius too, because like his original intention of like showing like what would be like a proper punishment for like a pedophile, but then the person that's like then he kind of said the story in a different way, where he now is like, okay, who would do this type of idea though? Who would do this like wild of a thing as sewing people together like this? And it's like, oh, you know, Nazi German doctor.
Exactly. Yeah.
According to villains.fandom.com, the doctor is based on the doctor you were talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just seemed too correlated. Like it just seemed too connected that like it's like you have an actual Nazi doctor who did experiments, stuff like that. And so like for some of you who don't know too much about Joseph Mengele, and I'm sorry if I'm saying his name wrong. Actually, I'm not. It's fine. Yeah, but he would do experiments on twins to kind of see like how the connection between the two of them. So he would separate the twins. One of the experiments he would separate the twins, and he would torture one of them to see if the other one felt any sort of pain or if they felt anything. He did a lot of experiments on that. He was really, you could tell that he was a twisted person, because he would try to win the trust of the Jews or those that he was interacting with by like using candy and being really welcoming, really warm and comforting to them, only to do these really sadistic sort of experiments to them. And so like, yeah, I think that Dr. Hyder did a really good job of that throughout the film. You know, he was weird and off-putting throughout the movie, but there were definitely times where it seemed like he was playing with them and like letting them feel like they were going to escape. Like there was a scene where he's swimming in the pool, and they're all trying to escape. And he notices them doing so, and instead of stopping them, he like opens the door for them and like lets them try to escape. So he's like playing with them and giving them hope that you all are about to leave. And then as soon as they get off camera, he takes his whip and starts smacking them. So it's just, I don't know.
It's sadistic. Like the doctor, they're trying to show the doctor is really sadistic. And I think so. Like, if you had to ask, like, what's the purpose of this movie or like point of it besides just like the director's like, you know, inspiration? Like, what's the actual, like, what's the message, if there's a message? Like, for me, it's not as much as there's any like message, or like there's no character arc where like any character's like redeemed or anything like that. It's more so solely a one that just kind of shows like the depravity of life, you know, and like if you once again think back to the Nazis and the doctor performing experiences, like those twins had no control over what was going on. Like these people just got, you know, really bad luck and ended up having to go through these horrible things at the hand of somebody else. And so this movie is just kind of like something like that, of like, yeah, there's no good ending. Like, this story does not have a happy ending, you know? Like this story ends with 2 out of 3 people in the Human Centipede dying, and it's the like worst people that died too. It's like the front and the back. So the girl in the middle is like literally just trapped in between 2 dead bodies that are connected to her mouth and her anus, you know?
Yeah, it's just funny, like, you bring up like a good point of like what's the point of the movie, and like sometimes like I think of like I don't think this movie did in any way, but there are movies out there that like poke fun at the audience who like enjoy movies like this, or like find some sort of pleasure in this. And so like that's my immediate thought, is that like the point of this, one of the points of this movie is to make you as uncomfortable as possible. Because like, you know, he gives Hyder gives vivid details of how the surgery is going to go. Like he tells you exactly where he's going to cut in the knee to make sure that you can't run away. He's going to tell you how he's going to like cut up your face this way, and then cut up your rectum so this way he's able to like do the surgery. And then they show you it. They don't, I don't think they do show it a little bit. They don't go into like super graphic, but they show you enough to let you know like how disturbing it is. And so this movie kind of like makes you feel uncomfortable, almost toying at you, saying like, why are you watching the film that's going to make you this uncomfortable? And so like that's something like I also appreciate about this film, is that like it knows it's going to make you uncomfortable, so it does what it can to create that experience.
And that's another weird thing, you kind of just mentioned, like how this film, if you actually look at it, really isn't, like, comparatively to what you would think, it's really not that graphic. No. Like, it's actually not like yes, there's scenes where there's cutting, and yes, there's scenes where there's blood and like people will be getting stabbed and shot. Like, don't get me wrong, it's still a horror film. There's still graphicness. But in terms of like when you think of like the Human Centipede, like, oh, this movie is so depraved. Like, it does not. It's really more not disturbing. That's the thing. It's more disturbing. It's like graphically, it doesn't really show you too much like wild stuff, but it's more so the concept. Like, there's a scene where. And it's what everyone's thinking about when they first watch the movie. But there's a scene probably in the middle of the film where the 3 people, the centipede, they're outside, and the German doctor's trying to get them to like do tricks and like all this stuff like that, like a dog or whatever, right? And then you see, you know, the lead guy, you know, just go like, you know, crap. And then you see like his bowels, and then the doctor's like, yes, yes. And so you see like, you know, he's about to start pooping. And then like the like girl in section B and just like, no, please don't do it. Please don't do it. And then you just, yeah, you can imagine how it plays out from there. And like, you just like visually watch these actors like pretend they are actually, you know, forcibly having to ingest feces. And it's incredibly disturbing.
All of which is, like we were talking earlier, is done through their eyes.
Yeah.
And like through them, like
it's really good, like acting
kind
of,
like not like vocal. I mean, you could hear them screaming because like obviously like, stuff like that. But like all of this is done mostly through their eyes and like body movement and stuff like that, which is again a really good job. Yeah, but yeah, you were talking about the end of this movie. And so I'm kind of curious your thoughts on how you think this movie could end. So do you have a prediction in mind, or do you?
I kind of do. But first, I do want to say, as people could, I don't know if for people who know this movie does actually have a sequel. I know we typically don't do movies that actually already have a sequel. This one does have a sequel, but the way those sequel work for this movie is that the sequel is like there's a guy like watching the movie and then wants to create a real Human Centipede. And so it's like the sequel doesn't stay in the universe. The sequel has its own different universe. And so if I was actually staying in the universe of what's happening in this film, so this film ends where it's just, so there's two detectives that come and like they hear a report of two American girls that have gone missing. And so they're, you know, trying to figure out, and they have suspicion of this doctor, and like they're almost for sure the doctor is like, you know, the one, right? And then, long story short, both detectives get killed. The doctor gets killed, and then Section A and Section C of the Human Centipede gets killed, which leaves literally just Section B by herself alone, connected to like these two other pieces or whatever. And it's just like just two other dead bodies. And she's just sitting there, trapped. And, you know, you're sitting there in the sadness with her, like, man, like this, I can't fathom a worse situation. Like, I really can't. I can't. Your best friend is like stitched to your rectum and dead. You know, like there's a random dude you do not know whose mouth you're stitched to, and he's dead. And
you don't even know his name because
you don't even know his name.
He never says his name.
Yeah, there's like blood everywhere. Everyone's dead, and you're in the middle. Also, this home is in the middle of nowhere. It's not like in some city. Like it's in the middle of a forest, right? And so, to me, it's really saddening, but there's the hope that like these detectives did have a warrant. Like they came back with a warrant. And so people know they're supposed to be there. And so people should be hearing from them soon. So my assumption with how this would continue.
The big question is, does she live, or does she live long enough for others to find her? Or do you think she dies before
she's lived for this long? She just needs to live for another day tops. I figured like if the cops don't respond within a few hours, I imagine they're going to send somebody. So I would hope that within 24 hours, there's cops there on scene that like obviously help her. So here's the crazy part is like being actually like having the surgery done to get removed from these two dead bodies attached to you. And for me, it's just like this would be like beyond traumatizing. Like I honestly could not fathom how traumatizing it would be for like your like best friend like being removed from your body and whatnot, and like actually trying to cope with something of that nature. And so I mean, first thing is just years of therapy. No question. like years of intense therapy. And I honestly kind of see more of like maybe even like being stuck in like an insane asylum type thing, because like to me this seems like one of those things that you don't recover from. Like I can't fathom any like, can you? Because I just can't fathom any scenario where she actually mentally recovers from something like this.
I think she's I agree with where you're going with this. I think that like I think she would just find a lot of difficulties finding a therapist. Like, I think that she would have to go to I mean, I'm not a licensed counselor or anything, but like, I know that licensed counselors hear a lot of intense stories. It's like they could, and some of them are very graphic, but like how? Just like there's no one has ever done anything like this, which is why the doctor was really excited about this. Like this has never happened before. So like, how do you build a relationship? Like from Lindsay's perspective, like how do you feel comfortable getting to that point where you can talk about it to a counselor? And then also from like the counselor's perspective, like how do you help someone through that? Like I just don't I don't know how you can help someone through the ordeal that they just experienced.
I mean, yeah, like my first natural thing would be like finding a way to give them the space to speak. You know, like, and once again, if like for, most movie her mouth was sewn and like couldn't speak, couldn't talk, like really giving this person a space to like just describe like the feeling they get. And I would imagine trust issues would be obviously such a big thing. Like they got kidnapped. We actually didn't talk about it, but there is actually, before they ever even go and meet the doctor, there's a scene where another car drives up alongside them while the car is broken down. And it's a guy, and they're like, oh, like, they're like, oh, he can help us. So like, they're like, right on the window, like, hey, can you please like help us? Like, we have a flat tire, like, please, like,
it's just like a German
whatever.
Just
and
like,
it's just like, and like,
just hitting on them.
Yeah, and like he says some stuff I'm definitely not gonna repeat in German, and like they don't realize it until they look it up in like the translator book or whatever. Then like once they realize what he's saying, they're like, oh, roll up the window, never mind, And so like there's this whole like trust issue thing of like you can't trust strangers, like you don't know what these people are gonna do. And so for me, like her trying to recover from that, to like trust anybody, to be able to do anything even anywhere near normal, would like be like the biggest and like first step.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I don't know if she lives.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if she lives. And there's nothing in the movie that indicates that she is in like poor health. I just don't know how big the police force is in this rural country town in Germany. And so, we don't know how long this has been going on. Like maybe it's been a couple days, maybe like it could be a couple days, but like if she's just been surviving off of eating another guy's poop, like she is not. She's not
in a nutritional good state.
She could be dehydrated. She could be she could be, she could be eating this food, but she could like eating it, but like she could still be suffering from starvation, and stuff like that. And so, they say that you only like, I think it's like 3 days you can live without water. And so something like that. So like, I don't know if this has been going on for a couple of days, like who,
that's the thing. They never tell us how long this is happening for. Like we really don't know. Like I mean, you definitely get the assumption that this has to be more than a day because the girls are up at night. So it has to at least be one full day. But it could be a day. It could be a week. Like they don't tell you.
Like how long? Because like my other thing is like how like they went there to investigate missing people, but like how long do they have to be missing for some? How long do they have to be gone for someone to be like, hey? They were supposed to be here by now, because in the beginning of the movie, they mention how like they're like in a European trip and that they're in Germany now, but they'll be in Italy later. They could be meeting up with someone in Italy, and maybe they never did. So maybe that person called it in. We don't know how the police got.
That is true. We never did learn how the police figured it out.
Got there in the first place. But like my thinking is like this had to be going on for a couple days, and so like I do believe. Like I agree with your prediction, but I also could 100% see that like, they did kind of find the abandoned car. That's true. But even still, I don't know. I could definitely see it so that they find her, but she has already passed away by the time that they find her. Which doesn't create much more of a prediction because the doctor's dead, the police officers are dead.
Everyone's kind of dead.
but like, I think realistic. Like, I think both things could happen where like they find her really quick and then, well, not really quick, but they find her and then they are able to save her. But does she really live like a normal? Like, does she ever go back to living a normal life, or does she kind of end up in an asylum? Or
and also remember, like he cut out like the tendon in her knee.
Yeah, so she's not going to walk.
So she's not going to be able to walk. You know, I don't know what parts of her. He said the doctor said at one point that because like they were being so loud, he was going to cut off the vocal cords, but I don't think he never did.
I don't think he did.
He never did it. So, but yeah, either way, there's no way that her life could be anything. I think that anyone would like really want to like do. Like it's just the recovery from that would just be so incredibly difficult, like physically and psychologically and emotionally. Like it's just on every aspect. I can't imagine damaging a human more. Which, if you go back to the inspiration of this film, is like once again, what's the whole idea behind this? It's supposed to be a punishment for like some of the like one of the most offensive crimes you can think of. Right. And so it kind of makes sense. Like if this is supposed to be like that level of like, you know, disturbing or whatever.
True. Okay. Well,
Jimmy, did you have any ideas on a prediction for this? Out of curiosity.
I actually don't. I didn't think of that far ahead. I had a few more facts I wanted to share though, real quick.
Yeah, let's get him in. Let's get him in here.
So, like I told you, I was really interested about the acting in this, so I tried to do a lot of research around that. And the actors were saying that the set was actually really fun. People had a lot of fun on set. They made
a nice house.
Yeah. They had a lot of fart jokes going on. There was a strict no farting rule while they were filming and like getting in and out. The guy who played Dr. Hyder, I think his name's like Dieter Laser or Lasser. He was a method actor, and so all the other actors were afraid of him because he would stay in character while they were filming the whole time.
That's creepy.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
And they had massage therapists on set because the like filming was so taxing on their bodies of like crawling around and going up and down. So I found that real interesting, and that they had these like prosthetic cheeks on. That's how they like got all the stuff to work. And they said it was really hard when they weren't attached to each other to eat because they like kept their cheeks so tight together. And then the one scene where you see like the other person eating the fecal matter, like that was one shot, took 10 seconds, and that was it. Like they only shot that once, and that was what you see is like the only thing that they got. That's all the facts I found.
That's great.
This movie was also sponsored by nose plugs. Because I feel like that would be one of the only ways I could get through, like as an actor.
Oh my goodness.
The only way I could get through it, especially if I'm section B or C.
I can't imagine like being like, you know, like one of the girls in the film and like, you're like, you know, you're on break and like you're sitting there eating a croissant, you know, whatever. And then Dr. Hyder comes up to you, like just, you know, like still in character, like, oh my goodness, like, dude, can you please not right now?
It's like, imagine if like one of the actors or actresses had like a stomach bug, and then the doctor,
yes,
let's do this. Let's get in a seat now. Don't go to your trailer. We're gonna film this right now. Okay, we're going places here. Let's come back. So, rating system. So, for those of you who this is your first episode, welcome. What a first episode you picked. We're really glad you're here.
Yeah, this is a wild first one.
This is a wild one. But we use a popcorn rating scale, and so what we do is if we it's kind of think of it in a 1 to 10 sort of term. So if we give something a small bucket, you don't need too much popcorn to get through that. So like it's a 1 to 3. If we give it a medium, it's a 4. Think of like 4 to 6, and so you know it's worth to watch, but put it towards the end of your watch list. Like it's not a priority. If we give it a large, think 7 to 9. Like definitely worth to watch. Have it towards the top of your watch list. And if we give it a big bucket, 10 out of 10. Like stop what you're doing, go watch this movie right now. Mm-hmm. And so that being said, I'm interested to know from Marqueze first, what would you rate the Human Centipede?
I would rate this. It's it's a large with no butter. It's large, no
Oh,
butter.
okay.
I'm giving it a large mainly just because the uniqueness of the idea.
Yeah,
Like this is
that's
why
fair.
like this movie is famous for a reason. It's famous though a lot of people have never watched it. Like
Yeah,
it's just like, oh yeah, like that's a crazy idea. Like
yeah, I
who would
know.
think of that? Oh, this guy did. Cool. Like it's
Yeah,
just, and so really most of that's coming from uniqueness. And like it's even though the plot of the film isn't obviously like super believable, like I do think the actors all did a good job of like keeping me in the like
yeah,
movie. Like at no point was I like thinking like, oh man, this acting's bad. Like, oh, this is just so like I wrote like no, like they kind of kept me in the movie really well. And
mhm.
so it's an interesting watch. It's definitely not something you watch really more than once. Like you just kind of watch it and let that be. But
Meanwhile, we both watched this movie twice, just not
I mean,
back to
now
back.
twice. Yeah, just not back to back, but like, yeah, like I watched this movie back in like 2011, and then now. So,
Yeah, I watched
um,
this movie. I watched this movie while I was on duty as an RA, and it was just really interesting because the way that we did duty at my undergrad institution, at least in the hall that I was in, was there was a person at the front desk and a person at the back desk, and I was at the front desk that day. So
person at the best that's just watching you, like,
I
what
know,
is he
right?
watching?
But yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Jimmy, do you have a rating for the Human Centipede?
Gosh, I was thinking medium with some toppings, but I think I'm gonna have to agree with. I think I'm gonna have to agree with Marquise. I think large, no toppings or anything, no butter or anything like that. But I definitely think like the cinematography of this, of like the way they shot it, the shot
Mm,
angles, like the acting is
yeah.
amazing. Like there's very few
Mhm.
words in this film with four actors in it. So I think you got to watch it. People who like gore, people who like intense, like you're gonna like it. Versus like if you're not really into that, you should still watch it because it's just cinematically great. But it might
Yeah.
not be your top choice after.
Yeah. If you got a
Yeah.
weak stomach, I do not
Yeah.
recommend.
Yeah. That's fair. Yeah. I'm gonna kind of do two different things here. I think if you are a casual movie fan, this is probably a medium.
Mhm.
Simply because this is kind of out there. Definitely not a date movie. Um, definitely something that you would probably want to watch. Like you'd have to be in the mood to watch. And for that, like for the casual movie fan, I'm going to give this a medium. But I think if you are a huge fan of horror, if you do like those types of movies that like can disturb you and stuff like that, then I have to agree with both Marquise and Jimmy here that you got to give it a large here, for these same exact
It's
reasons
it's
that
Jimmy, not Jamie.
they.
What is?
I said Jimmy.
I thought I heard Jamie.
Oh boy.
Maybe
Well, if
maybe
I
it's
said
that
Jimmy,
maybe it's that New York accent.
oh boy, maybe. But anyway, I'm curious. What did you all think of our continuation of the Human Centipede, the first sequence? Did you agree with it? Uh, what's the one thing you wouldn't want to eat if you were the front person, to help your people behind you out?
Yeah, what
Uh,
diet would you craft in order to help out the people behind you? Give them the most
you know what? I
nutrients.
asked Marquise this, and I'm going to ask you all this. Is this considered no, Jimmy, not Taco Bell? Is this considered a vegan diet? I'm curious to know
Oh
what you
my
all
gosh, I
think
hate you
here.
so much.
Please go ahead, follow us on Twitter at Poppin Predict and on Instagram at poppinpredictions.pod to let us know your thoughts, on how you think this movie should continue. Until then, keep popping, everyone.
Peace.